Week of Missouri Politics Midweek Update. I'm Scott Faughn. I'm your host, joined by Radio Zone, Ashland Zone, the Missouri Supreme Court Zone, Stephanie Bell. Thank you so much for making the time to come in and join us.
Thanks. It's my first appearance, actually, on this program.
Oh,
on
sweet.
The Midweek Update.
Yeah, this is way more fun than the other stuff.
It's less formal. I like it a lot.
And,
I always tune in.
We got to jump right in, though, bring in our man. All right, so to tee this up, I was like, you know what? Last show of the year, I feel like it's trendy and fashionable to do like the biggest headlines of the year. And I was like, so what was I going to do? I was just going to get on johncombest.com and read through the weather. So I was like, you know what? We just had him on, but it just seems like it should be the guy. If we're going to go totally read his headlines, we should just have the guy on if he's got time. Thank you for making the time, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott. Good to see you, Steph.
Hey, John.
We got to start this off. You could tell Kelton. So once Kelton went to the sock hat, the technology game here this week at Missouri Politics Midweek Update just skyrocketed. We can now have a guest and someone on. I mean, I think we could land a plane, right, Kelton, from here?
I think we should try that next.
I mean, I'm going to say confidently, we are the most highly technological office on this particular block.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got Gumbo's credit unions. I feel like even Landwehr up on the corner. I think we get out, and now Finney's is gone.
Kurt Schaefer joined your block, though.
Oh, he's across the street. Yeah. Kurt will be techie. Allie will be techie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, got to start off. My man Chad, thank you. Let me just tell you, this is everything a Stein needs to be, right? I'm just going to break it down for you. See this? Wonderful engraving. Got a top even. This is what takes it to a 10. Little design on the top here. Love it. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, and Scott, in the category of gimmick infringement, I have to introduce, I have my own version of the Stein of Knowledge. This is a mug from Washington University, and we're going to call this the mug of smug, because when you say something,
you have to die for John to drink fly.
It's, you know, anytime I point out the fact that I was right about something this year, I'm going to put my nose in the air.
Yes.
And then I'm going to just take a little sip from, let's see what it is. It's puberty blocker. So it's delicious. You know,
you liar. That beard has never had an ounce of puberty blocker.
I know a lot of people in my life that have wanted to slip me some hormone blockers, and it would have. Well, anyway, we won't.
And that's funny. That's good. That's good shit. All right, good shit, pal. Let's jump in. So what we're gonna try to do here, we're gonna have a good time. We'll spend about a half hour with our friends here. We're gonna dip in first of all, talk about the headlines of the year. I'm just thinking back, right? The year starts off. You had all these issues that people were going to discuss. Coming into session, I was going back and thinking, okay, what was the issues? And the issue that kind of went from, probably gonna do something about that was boys playing girls sports. I honestly believe, like, I saw Caleb Browden, and now here's the thing. Say what you will about Caleb Browden. He is not homophobic. He's not a mean-spirited person. He's a serious, good guy. But he thinks that, you know, I don't know how to talk about trans issues with all the right vernacular. And, I'm not from St. Charles. I don't know quite how to phrase things as everybody would want them to be. But I do think it does not make you homophobic or transphobic. I drink Bud Light frequently. And still do. That gives me some cred with the community. But I think that does not make you transphobic to think, you know what, you shouldn't play girls' sports. You're going to hurt somebody. And Caleb Browden came out for that. And then there was the issue at WashU that blew. I thought they were going to pass a boys and girls sports bill. Mm-hmm. And then it blew up. And Mike Moon grabbed it. And Mike Moon, I watched him transform his Senate career. He became the guy that filibusters, hijack stuff to get something done. Kind of almost had a little eye roll factor. And I watched that guy work his bill, 2-3 in the morning, worked his bill like you have to do. The thing, he may have done this in the past. I'd never seen it. And I mean, I think his colleagues had a whole different view of Mike Moon by the end of that. Still going to be the guy that's going to annoy him, no doubt. But I think they were like, yeah, okay, went in there and he actually compromised his bill and passed something. It was his legislation that passed. And they were going to give it to Senator Rader just out of pure spite and tired of messing with you. But they gave it to him, and I think that was a sign of respect and work. And I thought that was like the trans issue was the first half of session. I thought that was the biggest issue.
I think that – go ahead, Steph.
Is the fact that he was being reasonable, is that why he's not allowed in that new Freedom Caucus? Because are they going to let him in that?
You know, if I'm Mike Moon – see, here's the thing. Joining a caucus, you're a freaking senator. You have a caucus. There's 34 caucuses.
Yeah.
I used to tease Eric Schmidt about acting like he was a senator. Then he was chair of the caucus. They would meet all the time. Like, you're a senator. Why do you have a caucus? You don't even have. They're not even designed in the Senate. They're not even broke down by parties. Your desk and your seniority has nothing to do with your party, much less your caucus. If I'm Mike Moon, I say, thanks for the invitation, fellas. If you want to pass something, you can't speak to that senator for me. You come talk to me.
Fair.
Yeah.
I just thought it was the biggest pansy-ass weak bullshit to have caucus meetings all the time. And then to have a caucus meeting before the I thought that was almost funny because it was anything that destroys the caucus mentality. I've heard stories from Bill McKenna. You know how he got told he was going to be pro tem? He was out. He was driving around Jefferson County delivering ice, which I'm sure was that code for beer. And they said they got a call from Matheson and Scott and said, "You're going to be pro tem." He said, "I didn't run for pro tem." He goes, "Well, you don't run for pro tem. We call and tell you you're pro tem, and you're pro tem. We respect you've done well." He goes, "Oh, I don't want to be pro tem." And they said, and Matheson goes, "Well, son, this phone call isn't to ask you. We're telling you you're going to be the pro tem of the Missouri Senate. It's a great honor. You're welcome." And hung up the phone. And then they had a little caucus meeting beforehand with a few drinks just to ratify it. That's how they did it. And then if you wanted to pass a bill, you wouldn't talk to them. You didn't go to caucus. Well, what is this?
Well, hopefully, first of all, it might not apply to the Seersucker caucus. Is that still a thing at the end of session?
It's kind of fell out.
Okay,
Denny Hawkins has the gaudy jacket caucus, but again, it's a caucus of one. Days, if they were here during Christmas, that caucus would grow. But some days it grows. But for the most part, Denny just has his gaudy jacket caucus, started by David Pierce, a longtime Warrensburg tradition. If Dan Houcks makes the Senate, he's going to have to buy him some ugly jackets, go to a Goodwill or something, spray paint one maybe. But the gaudy jacket caucus kind of took it over the Seersucker caucus.
What the great thing about the trans issue is when you put aside, so if let's say you have some honest brokers, so you have a Mike Moon and you have some people on the other side that can actually hammer out some sort of compromise. It's the most perfect issue because everybody wins. As conservatives, we get to run on, we don't want guys' dongs flapping around a girl's locker room. On the other side, you get stage moms get in front of the cameras and go to reporters and talk about how they need more money and how they just might leave Missouri. Scott, I wrote about this for your publication in August. And everybody wins in this issue. And the best possible outcome last year is that you pass something that's not perfect, and then you can come back and fix it. And hopefully for conservatives, whatever fix there is in 2024 isn't quite good enough. So they could still run on it in the fall and then come back in 25 and do a little bit more.
So, Stephanie, did John just break down the perfect scenario for Missouri Republicans on abortion until Roe versus Wade screwed up their whole plan?
I think John's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think he's right. But I would prefer, honestly, to see us get away from some of these more cultural issues and get on to economics. I mean, if I'm picking biggest story of the year, I don't talk about trans stuff. I talk about I-70.
But this is what was talked about. I mean, the first half of session was dominated by this trans issue. Really, I thought Senator O'Laughlin, it was her first kind of cutting her spurs on how to really not lock this down and move forward, was how she brought in a few folks. And I think she was part of convincing Senator Moon, okay, you've tried it your way. Whether it was successful or not, it's up to you. Try it this way. And he did, and he was successful. Now, look, let's not kid ourselves. Senator Rizzo and Senator Rowden spent a lifetime of hours doing a lot of this work. That's just factual. But I guess on the trans issue, though, my point to you was before Roe versus Wade got overturned, Republicans in this state got to always have a boogeyman, always pass some bill that outlawed 2 or 3 theoretical abortions, got to run on it, and look, the intensity was theirs. Every possible piece of this issue played well for them. Then Roe versus Wade blew up the party. Now people are like, well, you mean really there's no abortion? Like, for real? Because everybody kind of thought, well, I could get an abortion, right? Now, little problem.
Yeah, I mean, we had the trigger law and it went into effect. And yeah, that can't be our issue. And now it's going to be Democrats' issue because they're trying to put it on the ballot. I think it's very dangerous for us. I think we're in a position now that we've heard maybe they're not going to have funding to put it on the ballot. I hope that's the case, because if that thing ends up on the ballot, I think we have a big problem.
I think they're going to have funding. I think they're not going to need as much funding as you might think. I think the trigger law did get pulled, but I think the Republicans pulled it on themselves.
And how do we decide, and I don't mean the royal we, including me here, but how do pro-choice activists decide which measure to go with? So first of all, we're asking a bunch of female activists to make a decision on which abortion petition they want. And when are they going to decide what it is?
I think the courts are going to force that decision in January in order to make. I think you're going to see all the theoretical stuff. I think there still is a few people in that party in this state that can, when they decide to weigh in, the Trudy Bush Valentine folks, when the former Gephardt kind of with Joyce Abusi, Roy Temple, some of those
people that win
decide.
Elections. You're saying the people that win elections,
the people that actually used to win things. Whenever they decide, and they don't frequently, to get involved in something, those folks are still very effective. And I think what may happen is some of those folks have had enough of letting some of these other folks. What you're going to have is activists way over here with a lot of intensity. They won't need as much money. You're going to have something sensible that would pass and be very good for Missouri Democrats over here. I think you're going to see probably Miss Abusi step in and say, okay, enough amateurs. We're going to take this over. This is going to happen. Kind of like when you saw at the last minute, they decided, okay, we're going to have Trudy Bush Valentine be the nominee. You weren't stopping that. Yeah. I mean, Lucas Kuntz, fine guy, fine candidate. Sorry, pal. Not happening. You know, it just didn't work. It was WrestleMania 9 with Bret Hart over again. It just wasn't what it was. So the second half I thought was defined by, inviting in the normal Senate stuff, but I-70 rebuilding, and I thought it was this wonderful game of chicken. They put out, they had a little beef, and two Southwest Missouri hard-headed guys like Lincoln Huff and Governor Parson might have, but I thought, the person that will never get the credit's a guy that grew up on Highway 50, Alex Tuttle. I thought Alex Tuttle played an amazing role as the governor's legislative person of letting some folks think the governor really wasn't for this, and some folks think he was. And it's one of those things. It's unsung hero. He'll never get the credit he deserves, and that's the way he knows. That's the way this game works. Is the press conferences have Lincoln and Mike out front, but there was a wonderful game of leveraging future monies, and the way they put this piece together. Is it fully funded? But it's going to be so far. Momentum will be now that it will be funded. And I thought it was a masterful job. And Patrick McKenna gets a lot of grief. And look, Patrick McKenna's not a game show host. That's a fact. Patrick McKenna may not be the guy. I've never had 10 beers with him. Maybe he's the kind of guy you need to have 10 beers. But the dude's run a heck of a department. MoDOT would have never been entrusted to do this at many points in my professional lifetime. The guy could have a little better bedside. When you piss off Dan Hageman, geez, you must be. I mean, what the hell? But he runs a good department. I just think MoDOT's in a good place, and I think you're going to see a lot of good. When I was on your show, I remember this. We talked about when Governor say of the state, we're going to do Wentzville's stupid intersection that's all got that railroad track in there.
Yep.
You're going to do something over in Kansas City I'm not as familiar with. You're going to do the Columbia thing, which, my God. I mean, I don't know who designed the Columbia 6370 interchange, but what idiot with a box of crayons. I mean, I honestly think I'm not one. I normally, I don't know how I could do Wentzville, but I could do Columbia's. I really could.
No, it's a problem, and it's a problem for not only people in mid-Missouri, but people from all across the state. And I think, and the tri-level here in Jeff City is also a problem, I think. But no, when we're talking about things that actually will make a lasting impact, this is huge. And we were talking on our show this morning, though, people are already excited about it, but it is going to be, you're giving MoDOT a lot of credit. They're going to take a lot of grief over the next couple of years, because what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to find a way to do the construction and keep traffic moving. And that it's going to be painful. John,
I heard a great analogy on, it was actually Brad Jones brought it up when you were taking one of your many trips abroad. You remember when they did 40 in St. Louis, John?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It sucked. It was a freaking mess.
Yep.
But you know what? It is better now. It still backs up in Hampton. It still backs up 270 a little bit there in Mason. But you know what? It is better. And I would say if you're in St. Louis, and it was worth it.
Yeah, and when you look back on it, it's a blip, right? And the investment is, and I think about when they had to shut down one of the bridges across the river. It is painful, and you will curse them every day. But today, I don't think about it. And when I think back on it, it really doesn't matter.
I agree. I think that it is a career-defining project. It's going to take 10 years, but I'm a big fan of the of the vision. And I mean, look, Lincoln Huff deserves a lot of the credit for this. The governor's office out and Alex is kind of an intermediary negotiating person. You know, Jay Wonderlick never gets his due. The guy from MoDOT that comes over and talks to the legislature. Imagine being Jay Wonderlick. I mean, that guy, he should, you know, they were going to give an honorary law degree to lawmakers. He should have an honorary psychology degree, counseling degree. He should be able to write you a script for Zoloff. Jay's a hell of a guy.
So Scott,
I have the session. I don't care who you are. Casting that vote for the budget, that supplemental budget that funded this and started this process, will be the most impactful vote any of these guys take.
Oh,
so
I think
Scott,
that's
you think?
right.
Like I would just say, you bring up how MoDOT has improved, and you say the same thing about what's happened at Mizzou. What from those two case studies of agencies that we all used to love to dunk on could you apply to DESE? So what do you learn from Mizzou, and what do you learn from MoDOT that you apply to DESE?
You know, John, I think there's a real problem with figuring out how you do that. With Mizzou, not everyone in the state interacts with Mizzou, and very few people at any one time interact with Mizzou. I think that, and Mizzou, I mean, even still, people say, "Are you pro Mizzou?" I'm like, I'm pro Choi, because you know, I wasn't pro Wolf, and I wasn't that, and I wasn't. The next guy was, he had a tough job, right? So you get it, but I lots of folks could be anti Mizzou real quick. That's why I thought kudos to the curators for extending him. You got a guy that's turned it around. Everybody says run it like a business. Losing that dude, I mean, imagine filling his shoes right now.
Right.
Imagine, it's like Cliff Smart. I mean, Jasinski's got, I don't know how you feel. Cliff Smart, everybody has some understanding how important Choi is to Mizzou and the turnaround. Imagine Cliff Smart's impact on but Cliff Smart, like when I think Moon Choi, I think of Mizzou. I don't think of him as Mr. Columbia. Cliff Smart is not only Mr. Missouri State, he's Mr. Columbia or Mr. Springfield.
Yep.
It's tough. I think the lesson you learn from DESE is define what the hell you do here. When you're MoDOT, what do you do here? And how do you get out of the headlines? You probably have to go find the folks that are the most pissed off and placate them. I thought that's kind of how MoDOT started working out their troubles after the 15-year plan was apologize, admit problems, admit there's issues, focus on your core stuff that you do well, and just sit down with your loudest critics and humbly work out a way to get them to shut the hell up. I think, and Carl Lesslinger is the perfect person for it. I personally don't know what the hell DESE does. Do you?
No.
I can tell you what they do, John. If you interview me, ask me what DESE does.
What does DESE do?
I'll tell you. I have experience with this. DESE will go to great lengths to make sure you understand that the dog shit 5% worst superintendents, it's not their fault. They can do nothing about it. But please, if you see Lincoln, tell him we need more money. That's the three things they do. Yeah. They can do nothing. They're over in charge of nothing. But if you see Lincoln, could you tell him, well, we need some more money?
And they grade schools, but they put it in a format where you can't find it.
Oh, it's impossible.
And so the Show Me Institute has to develop a completely new website just to interpret the data that DESE puts in like Excel spreadsheets that are so large you can't even download. I mean, who's grading DESE? And that's really, and the other thing I think, I think leadership is important. I think that was your point with Mizzou, is that, getting Carla in there, I think will be really helpful. But at the same time, we've made this mistake in the past. I think as conservatives, we don't look throughout the organization, and there are people there who have been there for too long who will not be bought into the new vision. They really need to look top to bottom of that organization.
Here's the thing. I'll tell the three things I would do to fix DESE. Number one, I think the first problem is the buck has to stop somewhere. Where does the buck stop? I think you've got your worst 5% of superintendents that you have in every walk of life. The worst 5% of bartenders, realtors. The worst 5% of flat Doug Becks is going to exist, right? But you have another 10 to 15% of superintendents that are worse because there's no oversight, no guidance. You can literally be corn man and get paid $115,000 tax dollars that folks have worked hard for just to promise you'll never apply there again. The buck has to stop somewhere for that bullshit. Right now, again, they'll tell you it doesn't stop with us, not with us, not with us. It's going to have to stop somewhere because right now, your worst superintendents can start more fires than Carl Lesslinger, Charlie Shields, Margie Van D, whoever it is, can put out. So you've got to have a way to call this out And I'm going to help with that in January. Major announcement, free service of Faughn Media is coming. It's going to be wonderful. We're sending out the Sunshine Request this week. You'll be able to find out if your school has a cornman or if a cornman is up applying for a school that you pay local tax to. So I guess part of the reason is you ask Faughn Media for help, and then we benevolently help you like we're going to do. But the other thing is you got to just go sit down with your people and say, what was your problem? What the hell happened? And how do we fix that and not happen again? Or you just got to have more red ass. I mean, I wouldn't give you a plate full of piss for the whole place. And number two, you should educate people on what you actually do. Like, I don't want my son to learn he's racist at school. Right. He doesn't need social or emotional learning. He needs reading, writing, arithmetic. Then send him to PE. Teach him to tackle. That's what if you want to do a fourth thing at school, teach him to tackle. Alex Tuttle learned how to tackle the 1998 state champions with him and Caleb Jones. And he's doing okay in life. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and tackling would be what I would teach. Don't teach them they're racist. Don't teach them that Gay Rights Day. Don't teach them that they might be trans. Teach them to tackle.
I was hoping to get you genned up a little bit today, Scott, and I don't know if
I can't stand that corn man.
And the other thing, my school that I really like, teach them some agriculture. Teach them about the state's largest industry. We've got a learning garden and a farm, and I always like to point that out. I didn't get that education at Jeff City Public Schools, but Southern Boone has a great program. The kids, garden and eat from the garden and are learning about an industry that's really important to our state. I think more folks should pick that up.
And they should get some MASBA tax credits for that, Stephanie.
I would ask you, how many school shootings have been done by an FFA member? Mic drop.
Yeah, absolutely none.
So coming out of session, I got to be right. The old Stein of knowledge here did me right. Everybody's like, oh, Bill Eigel, he's running for lieutenant governor. Oh, he's going to run for secretary of state. And I was like, guys, Bill's a different turn cat. I think Bill's running for governor, and I think he could win. And Bill, I think now he's quieted the people that are wondering. He's running for governor, and I think he could win. John, it's your guy. What do you think?
I think that, to assign, I don't know if Bill wants to be assigned as my guy. Let the record show that I was one of those people that was saying to Scott, there's no way he's running. And a friend of mine, a mutual friend of all of ours, texted us from an Eigel event one time. And I just responded and said, is he still pretending to run for governor? And I was wrong, I really thought it was an act. And clearly he's not only is he running for this, but what I love is, Scott, when Lemke was on your show last week or the week before, it's impossible to listen to Jim Lemke talk about this campaign and not walk away and say, Eigel might actually win this. And I still am of the position that the unpopular opinion that Mike Kehoe is the incumbent here. And that I know Jay Ashcroft has the name ID, but I view Mike Kehoe as the incumbent. And who is going to peak in July and August? And I don't think it's going to be Jay Ashcroft. So when does Eigel peak?
Well, some could say, the fourth quarter of this year, because once session starts, it's one of those things where your big checks, your six-figure checks won't go away, but your $5,000 checks from people that they're not going to give during session, those will start to dry up. I think what Bill Eigel's got to do is produce some polling that shows he can turn this into something real to take to a six-figure donor. A six-figure donor generally doesn't write you a check without the belief you can win. And I think I brought that up to Jim, he's reached that part where, and also, you got to be honest with you. I do think playing with the Trump thing is playing with fire and saying, give me money to help Donald Trump that doesn't help Donald Trump. That I think they'll do that in July when it's too late to matter. Mm-hmm. But I think that doing that, if you start doing that again, I think there will be people up your hind end and it'll blow up on him. So, he's kind of lost that. That was one way he helped build that fundraising base. Yeah. I think that's an issue. Bill Eigel during session will have a mouthpiece, but how many Missourians read session news? That's going to be a problem. When I say that sitting in this studio behind this logo, I think that the folks, it's to me funny. Like Bill Eigel attacking Mike Kehoe on Bill Eigel's social media, it just doesn't matter. There's nobody that's on Bill Eigel's social media that would vote for Mike Kehoe that's not already voting for him. They don't care. Right. There's an Ashcroft folks that would vote for Ashcroft that might be convinced. all of his shots on social media at Mike Kehoe are worthless.
Well, and I
They're good
think
at Jay.
well, and I think there's somebody with us that could tell us how many people are reading session news every day.
Yeah.
And I think
you're right. It's few. It's very few.
It's apparently what you need now. Are those folks have some influence to their social media page? Take Derek Good down in Jeffco. Derek Good's a guy I respect and I know got a following. Derek Good doesn't just count as one vote. Derek Good has a circle of people that respect his opinion and like him and will take him in and so Derek Good's but that number, if it gets to four figures, it might be stretching. And that does he have some impact on more than four figures? Yes, but as far as actually, Derek likes him, I'm going to make that a fundamental part of who I choose to vote for. You're maybe get to three figures, and that's a compliment to Derek, frankly.
Absolutely. And so on the counterbalance to that is that normal people, like the kind of people that aren't watching a political show on Thursday at 11:30, are driving through St. Charles County right now. I know, like who wouldn't be watching this right now? But they drive through St. Charles County and they see Kehoe billboards everywhere. And I have friends that are civilians, like normal people, like not us, who text me and say, "Hey, do you know Mike Kehoe? I just saw his billboards." So those are the people those are people that 100% of them might not vote in a Republican primary, but that's where the money comes in.
And I'll disagree with you. I mean, you said you think Bill can win. I don't think he can win. I do think when he said he was running for governor, I thought he was running for governor the whole time. I don't think he messes around. I don't think he's playing. I think he can, and
he messes around a little bit.
Well, but
he's going to cut your income tax, he's doing the property. There's a little bit of messing around.
I don't typically agree with him, but when he said he was running for governor, I thought, yep, I think he is. And so I think the bigger question is, who does he take votes away from? Because I think he's going to end up being a spoiler. And I think in this case, he's going to spoil Ashcroft's campaign. I'm all in for Kehoe.
On the attack. He's good.
I think Kehoe is going to win. I want him to win. I think he'd be a great governor, but I don't think Eigel can win. I don't think he can get there.
But do you think that's Steph just because Ashcroft is weak? Like if Ashcroft was actually stronger, do you think that Eigel
are you handicapped because you personally know Jay?
Am I handicapped by answering that question?
Does it make it harder for you to answer that question? Take a regular Missourian that will never meet any of these people.
No, I think John's right. I mean, I think the billboards. I think Kehoe is going to have enough money.
I like the billboard move.
Yeah, and I think Kehoe's going to have enough money to get up on TV. And so I think when we're talking about what John says, civilians or lay people, I think it's really going to come down to money in a lot of the in a huge way. And I think Kehoe is going to have the money to get there. And he is everywhere. I mean, people talk about my social media and my selfies and how I'm everywhere. He is working hard for it.
You two are neck and neck.
No, we're not. I mean, his social media, he is literally everywhere. And I think
the two of you sleep.
And I think when people meet him, they get his sense of authenticity. He can talk about all of his achievements, and I think that's going to matter.
I tend to think I watched Bill go from my show on a Sunday to your show on like a Thursday. And I felt it's when he crossed the Rubicon. He was on my show and he was telling me how he's going to end income tax, end property tax. And I'm like, yeah, but you're a businessman. I mean, you but really. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what are you going to do? Make sales tax 40%? I mean, what are you going to do? And he said, well, he gave some answer about how he's going to try to make this work, right? Then on your show, he's like, well, we're not going to make it work. Hell with it. Just piss it off. Piss on all of it.
And I think,
now you found the ethos of the suburban, white, angry Republican.
The burn it down. It's the burn it down approach, right?
Yep,
but who's to say that doesn't work?
No, I think it's a good approach. Yeah. I think it's the right approach. I think Republican primary voters are just mad. There's nothing they want. They're just mad. It's not like, oh, we want this public policy done, or we're not going to take it anymore. No, it's just how mad are you? And let's throw a hissy fit.
To go back to your original point, Scott, this reminds, and the three of us are biased here because we came up in a different era. And when you came up in the early 2000s and in the 90s, this is a radically different Republican Party than we bought into the system of you have you love the Chamber of Commerce and you just want to start doing some legislative things. And this is a much different Republican electorate than we dealt with in the 90s and the early 2000s.
I got hooked.
I'm so confused.
God dang, I got hooked here. All right, I got to take a second here. If you're watching this like John is from the comforts of Chesterfield, we shamed him out of moving out of St. Charles. Although I think Phil's going to turn things around. I think Phil Cristofanelli is going to usher in a whole different St. Charles. I think Phil Cristofanelli could be governor one day.
And he's supported by Washington University, by the way. Brought to you by
appreciate you letting everybody know. But if you're watching this on rural broadband like you are to be, United Fiber up in Savannah does the best job. Stephanie, I got a late Christmas gift for you. I got you one of these. If you've ever, like me, been to the co-op annual meeting gifts kind of suck. No offense, but a lot of times. And so this is such a standout gift. This is a frying pan. Now I'm going to give this to you, Stephanie, and I mean this not as a sexist way that you'd cook with it, although they're great to cook with. I mean, if you need to keep an old boy in line, if Mark at the office gets out of line, one of these clock with one of these. Now he may be down for the rest of the day, but he'll come back to work the next day with a sore head and behave.
Oh, thank you.
And John, you gotta text me your fancy Chesterfield address because I got one of these for you.
Oh, what is that?
I tell you what, I'm going to offer this to Stephanie. This is a Yeti.
Oh, the Yeti.
The Yeti. It's a United Fiber. Either you can have this or the frying pan.
Oh, I'm totally taking the frying pan.
Okay, John, if you'll text me an address.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's going to be up to Kelton because I'm going to pass the buck here. That's how I roll.
Absolutely.
To send you the Yeti tumbler here from United Fiber. And also, John, I got to ask you. Mm-hmm. When we finally twist your arm enough next month for you to come over and tape the show from the studios, I will try to get him to do a midweek update and the TV show. Where are you going to stay? What's going to be your red line is I'm not coming if you don't put me up where?
I'm not going to go to that hotel that I stayed at in 1995 when I won a Desi Award. No, because you know what? The sheets probably haven't been changed, and the comforter probably hasn't been changed since 1995. Where I am going to stay is Courtyard by Marriott, and they're the official sponsor of the Midweek Update.
Stephanie, I mean, seriously, if somebody comes to Jeff City, they see you on television, radio, they see you arguing in front of the Supreme Court, and they're like, I've got a case, I got to talk to you. What's the hotel that if they say, let's have breakfast at my hotel, you're like, okay. If they don't say where, I mean, do you even go take the case? Do you think they have the money to hire you if they don't stay where?
Probably not. They have to stay at the Courtyard Marriott. I'm a Marriott girl. I could pull up my app right now. I've got status and all the points. I don't stay anywhere else.
What status are you? Oh, shit.
I think they knocked me down a couple statuses this year. Last year, I think I had like gold elite or something. But you got to stay there, and it's wonderful. The bar, the food, it's great. When I have people from out of town,
what's the highest status? Have you ever been at Rich Christmer's? Rich Christmer, I swear to
He's
God,
a Marriott guy. Yeah.
Rich Christmer can call and have your ass kicked out of a Marriott. They will come and put your stuff in a suitcase and stick it out on the sidewalk. Rich Christmer has like God status, I think, at Marriott. I thought that was bullshit. Because I'm like, that doesn't happen. Because I'm just white trash. If I sit at the Courtyard, but when I'm not at the Courtyard, I'm like a Super 8 guy, or I'll just sleep in the bed of my truck or something. Rich has like, I don't know, he must know like Mr. Marriott or something.
And he knows all the tricks. He knows all, there's all these sites where you can upgrade or double your points or whatever. Oh. Yeah, Rich is the guy to talk to about this stuff, man.
He almost has to carry a laptop around to calculate where he's going to lay his head down and what room. And like, if he wants your pillow at a Marriott, they're going to come in there and take your pillow and take it to Rich's room and hand it to him. I've seen this happen. All right, so let's do a prediction here. I got Limpy to come on. He went 45 Eigel, 35 Ashcroft, 20 Kehoe. Stephanie, give me what if we were sitting here at the state? If we're sitting at the state fair talking hogs, dogs, and logs. Give me your prediction.
You want me to give you a prediction?
Yep. That's Limke's. I'm going to put Stephanie's here.
What is that? That doesn't add up. What does that add up
45,
to?
20, and 35 does add up to 100, right, John? I'm not.
Okay,
you know what? I'm trying to do the math and I can't.
Kelton has on a sock hat. What do you think?
I'm trying to think. Is that
add up to 100?
All right.
I'm not very good at math.
I think I'd put Eigel at 20.
Okay.
I will put Kehoe at 45.
Oh, I like that.
And Ashcroft at 35.
So I'm seeing a sense of a floor here of people think there's a third of the electorate's going to vote for Ashcroft. They don't care.
I would say, here's my guess. I say Kehoe, see if these numbers add up. I say Kehoe 40, Eigel 35, Ashcroft 25.
No. Yeah, no, goes that up 40. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if the math was wrong.
Okay. So you both think Kehoe does well. I think there's a floor that Ashcroft has that's the highest floor. The ceiling I'm interested in.
Oh, for Ashcroft?
I mean, yeah. What's Ashcroft's ceiling? What's the most votes he can get?
I don't think he gets more than 35. I don't see a path for him to get more than 35%.
You don't?
Yeah, I'd say 35.
Huh, I'm interested in it.
What do you think it is?
Oh, I think Ashcroft's floor is a third for sure. I think he could.
You think the floor is a third?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he could come in. I mean, if this polling at the start of the second quarter, if his polling is still strong, you're going to see some folks that are going to cut him a check based off, I think he's going to win factor. I think Ashcroft, keep in mind his dad's out there. And I think that Bill Eigel has done Kehoe a great favor in showing how to attack Jay Ashcroft. And I think he's done Ashcroft a great favor in showing how just to say, burn it down to everything, logic, reason, the hell with it. We're all mad. Mm-hmm. And I think Ashcroft, you could see him if Jay Ashcroft says Bill Eigel's message, it'll go further than Bill Eigel saying it. And I think the one thing you haven't seen yet is Jay say, well, that seems to work. Why don't I do it too? And just say, I'm going to cut all your taxes. No gay will smile here in Missouri. If a woman tries to sneak across the state lines for an abortion, we're going to shoot her. But we're going to have the baby first. He's going to figure out that just the hell with everything. Trump won the election, all that stuff. I think Jay's a smart guy, and he's going to look and say, well, that message works. Why don't we just do it?
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's him?
No.
So that's not really him, right?
No, I don't think it's Bill Eigel either.
I don't know. I don't know Bill well enough to say whether.
I'll give you another prediction on this. If Bill Eigel were to win this thing, he would take it seriously and do a good job.
Yeah.
I think if he was ever in Senate leadership, he would have done a good job. I think you do so as he's the minority. He's the leader of the opposition. Yep. Whatever the majority of the Senate wants to do, he wants to stop it. Whatever anybody, but if he was in charge, I think you watch in Britain, right? They go the leader of the opposition is against everything, and then one day they win an election. They're the prime minister. They're for all the normal stuff they have to do, and I think that would be the same way Bill would do. I think he would do an actual good job. I think 2 + 2 would have to equal 4, and he would be fine.
But I think it's incumbent on people like John and you and me, and you said it, when he's saying things like, we're just going to cut all these taxes, and you're saying, what about the locals? How are we going to replace this money? To push on him and say, what is your plan? The same for Desi. We're hearing from him. We just have to get rid of the whole thing. That's fine. But what is your plan for education in Missouri? And I think he should be asked those questions and be forced to respond.
John, if Desi went away tomorrow, how many weeks would it be before anybody noticed?
It'd be a while. Yeah.
I think we need a plan for education, and I think he needs to be pressed on that.
Now, I do think, Scott, like when I know the edition that you're talking about when you had Eigel on, Steph, to your point, I think people hear an answer, and I wasn't particularly impressed by Bill's answer on that one question, and I think that people could see that and think, well, he's probably got a little bit of work to do on that issue, or that math doesn't add up.
I don't think that. I don't think that voters care. I think they're mad. And I think you can tell them anything you want to tell them, and they'll eat it up with a spoon. I think they're just angry. And I think they want to vote for the I think that's why I think Trump has a very good chance to be reelected. Yeah. Because I think they thought they were flipping off folks the first time, and all the people they flipped off then, they want to flip them off even more now. And I think telling them the economy's good is a spit in the face to a lot of folks that
for sure
it ain't doing good for them. And they're also now they went from being called racist, sexist, homophobic. Now they're somehow transphobic, and those folks have been living their lives. They haven't changed anything. They're not trying to hurt anybody. And I think when they started arresting Trump, something in folks' minds like, yeah, it's bullshit. Because I think it is bullshit. Mm-hmm. But I think there's something in folks' minds that says, you know what? You want to pay off a hooker. That's not good. Your wife ought to be mad. But that ain't Bill Clinton could do with like employees, and y'all thought that was fine. Now you want to put him in jail for it? I don't know. Yeah. And I think there's a go screw yourself vibe that it'll crest when something serious happens. if this war in the Middle East expanded and people were afraid of something, if China took Taiwan, yes, Donald Trump would be thrown to the back. They'd want a serious person. But until something serious, 9/11, right? People want somebody serious. Now people got serious quick when a real tragedy happened. But I don't think they're serious yet.
And you think Bill Eigel takes the go screw yourself vote? Is that what you?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
100%. That's what he's fishing for. And I think there's a lot of fish out there for that. That if something serious in this world happened, they would go from go screw yourself to let's get serious. Mm-hmm. And I think it would happen. You can't. These things are. We all remember where we were on 9/11. If there's another event in this world that happens where we all remember where we were, all that rhetoric and all that stuff's gone, and people want something serious. Now in our culture, we don't want anything for very long. So how long that lasts? But yes, I think if an event happened in February that snapped this country together, by August, people want something serious.
Hey, Scott, the one issue from last January that you forgot to mention, how we started off the session last year, was dress code gate. Remember dress code gate? That was how we started the session last year.
Let's get to the story that's dominated the fourth quarter of this year. Dean Plocker.
Yeah. All
right. I'm going to give you my take on what's happening. My just Stein of knowledge, simple hillbilly take. We have an esteemed internet professional from Chesterfield. We have a highly regarded barrister, highly rated media personality from Columbia. This is south of the river take. Dean screwed up. He had a staff that didn't respect him. He had a staff that, frankly, he didn't manage very well. And that blew up on him. He screwed up his ledger. He screwed it up. He should have fixed it. He didn't fix it in time. There's going to be folks that are going to have I think the timeline of that's got some questions he's going to have to answer on how that all came down. But I think then now you're seeing the pile-on, and I get it. I had no idea that they'd pass things, and of course the legislators didn't, where the staff doesn't even work for them, it works for the bureaucracy. I think Caleb Rowden is a good man that tried to do a good thing in hiring his former staffer. That's obviously like Wile E. Coyote blown up on Caleb, because now they're leaking stuff to the Democrats about, the Independent about, he built a
office
cabinet or something. I mean, and here's the thing. I think what's going to come down to the crust of all, this is just my prediction. You've got the clerk who's obviously out for the speaker. And I happen to know her. I respect her. I don't know the person I'm hearing these stories about. I don't know. I don't think she's an irrational actor. I think she's got a reason why that Dana thinks these things are the right thing to do. I don't believe she's just some activist idiot that goes out half-cocked doing things. Dana's an intelligent person. I think there's a lawyer that worked for the House now. He actually works for WashU now, who's just totally weaponized to get Dean. I think this House Ethics Committee is I've seen this before. They don't want to stop having meetings because they're the most important people in town right now. Now, when the session starts, no one's going to care about the Ethics Committee, but right now it's the most important thing in town. I think they'd meet every day if the chairwoman could. I think the chairwoman's probably on the side of Dana. I think you got a legislator that the judge is probably for something happening. Judge Evans is for wanting to rack Dean's knuckles somehow. The rest of them are like, okay, he said he did it, whatever. So they need to make it to where something about this software. The software sucks. I actually have seen it. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's.
Was it user error, Scott?
I think it's probably functional. Let's be honest. It doesn't take a big fancy computer system. You've worked in the legislature. How many true people call about constituent issues of state government?
Very few.
I worked in the speaker's office before he was speaker. I went and held office hours. I used to go to Bearden Insurance Company in Piedmont, Missouri, and sit on Saturday, hungover, unhappy. And you know what? Me and Wayne Bearden, or Carl, not Carl's, Wayne. I think Wayne was his nephew or something, cousin. Sat there. Nobody came in. So the argument of this is, in the suburbs they don't call. In the rural area they call about SSI and Social Security. They won't get on disability. That's why they call their state rep, right? Mm-hmm. It's just horseshit to think that there's all this valuable data of this thing. Yeah. And if you read the Democrats or the Independents version of it, of course it makes you think that. But if you ever worked there, or if you've ever been a legislator, there's no value in all that data. It's just in a world where data is so prevalent, that data is worthless. The people that call your office ain't Republican primary voters for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
If they call your cell phone. So it's going to come down to they sort of thought they would get him on this checkbook thing. I think the way he handled it, owned it, moved on. I think most reps are like, they had this caucus meeting, like, okay, fine. Well, now I think what they think they've got the aha moment is Dean wanted to get this software done before the elections. Well, I think, and their argument's going to be, well, he wanted to take all the data from all these influential people that call, all their addresses and phone numbers, and he's going to take that and export it to a campaign use. Well, the problem with that is twofold. One, if you've ran a campaign, you know that has little to no value to you compared to the data you can easily get. And number two, the data has no value because it's not people really calling for things. And the software is bad. It's probably fine for what they do, right? The 3 calls a month they get on something's stake. I mean, all they do is forward them to the congressional office, right? If you've taken these calls, it's about a passport, which you have no ability. It's about SSI. It's about getting your Social Security check straightened out, none of which you can do anything about. If it happens to be the rarity of you need your phishing tags mailed to the right address, you don't need that great a software program to track that. I think Dana's probably right about that. But the fact that you wanted to upgrade it, I'm sorry. I don't see that as nefarious. It's not like Dean owns the company. So I think you're going to see a big to-do about nothing, and it all moves on. And then you're going to see super awkward Caleb Browden, Dean Plocker, if they don't address that situation.
My favorite story about reading constituent mail was, it was a long time ago that I had to do it, but like the liberals, someone told them, like, I think that on every bill, we just counted up the number of emails that we got on both sides, and that's how the senator went in and voted. So they would use these like programs and just spam us all day long. I'm like, you think this is effective? But, the data is one thing. But I think going back to just, zooming out a little bit, because you said, this is the most important thing of the fourth quarter. And in our little bubble, I think that's true. But we talked earlier about, folks don't even know who our governor candidates necessarily are yet. Do you think anybody really knows about, who Dean Plocker is or about the intricacies of this? And so I think when I've seen the take of like, it's over for him, or, his campaign is over or whatever, these people know in our bubble, it's a big deal. I think no one is going to talk about it, and it's not going to matter.
It does. I was just going to say it does make a campaign ad though. So if you're Bob Onder and you're spending $2 million to hammer home a message about a campaign donor wanted a sweetheart deal on software and he was double dipping on expenses, suddenly when that's on your TV, maybe it makes a deal.
I think where it matters more than even that is, and we're going to see here in January, what did he raise for his lieutenant governor campaign? Mm-hmm. I have not seen a lot of Dean Plocker invitations to fundraisers. And that's going to be the bigger tell is, does he stay in this race? And he's got $1 million, $1.2 million. He can run a competitive race with that. But the question is going to be, what has this done to his fundraising? And just like Bill Eigel, really, come next Wednesday at noon,
he's done.
A lot of the checks he was going to get from folks that from his Senate influence will be over. Dean's will be over too. And that's not a rule that applies just to Bill, it applies to everyone. So I think that's going to be the interesting take is, what does all this do to his fundraising? And I have to it's got a negative effect. How negative, But I think at the end of the day, you're going to see it come down. The aha moment's going to be, oh, he wanted to export all these people wanting SSI as a campaign tool. And I get it. You can write an independent story making that sound terrible. Yeah. But if you're a legislator with any kind of sense, you're going to be like, well, that's not worth anything.
Yeah.
And that's going to be that. So anyhow, I think that's where the ultimate. Give me a prediction, John. What happens here?
What happens with Dean's campaign, or what happens coming up?
With Dean being speaker in his campaign,
I think that he'll come up with a better answer than whoops, I made a mistake, and I think he'll stay in the race. I don't think he's going to get out, and I think Onder's going to just beat him over the head with this for months.
And Holly Rayner becomes lieutenant governor.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if I can make that call.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a prediction on who wins, but I think 6 months from now, no one will be talking about it besides Bob Onder. Yeah. And I think he stays. I think the legislature will do something silly. People will be talking about that as soon as they kick off and start fighting, and they won't talk about Dean at all.
The true winner here is if this works out to where the legislature says, okay, my staff works for me, not the bureaucracy, is the Democrats. Because you'll have a new clerk. I've heard that Dana is planning to leave in the summer. At some point, there'll be a new clerk, right? She won't be there forever. There's a new clerk. They'll be more partisan, if I had to guess, because the world's more partisan. Democrat goes to the floor, does something they don't like. All of a sudden, that staffer's fired. I think that is a huge trap for the Democrats, and I think Chris will be smart to get out of it. All right, John. We talked about this year. I will go around the room here. Let's get a prediction for next year. I'll start. My prediction for next year is that Governor Parson goes when he's done signing the bills, goes on a tour, and people don't appreciate him like they should. But about 18 months after he's gone, he will be regarded as one of the best governors the state ever had.
Let's go to John first.
What do you think?
I was just going to say go to Steph because I need a couple seconds to think of what's happened.
My prediction for Chesterfield is they elect David Gregory, and he will be the quintessential Chesterfield state senator. Everybody from Chesterfield will be proud that David Gregory and Paige represents them, and he will be. If I had to handicap this, the day after the primary, who Ann Wagner's successor is, I would tip David Gregory.
Wow.
Well, I can make a surefire bet. I think the legislature implodes, and I think nothing gets done in the spring. I also, and I hate to make this prediction, but I think the primary is going to be nasty. And I think it's going to be nastier than we've seen in the past. I really do. And there's so many competing personalities and strong opinions that I hate that because I have lots of friends who are running against each other.
They know what they signed up for.
But I think it's going to be like we haven't seen before. The other thing I want to mention about this last year that we haven't talked about, can I do that?
Yeah.
Marijuana legalization for this year. I mean,
passed.
I would also say, I think, what'd we do? $1 billion for marijuana legalization?
More than $1 billion.
How are they doing at that bureaucracy?
Something like that. So I'm going to say you're going to just keep seeing that skyrocket next year.
I got a buddy of mine that's trying to just move his store because his lease is up. And it's taken like 6 months. The damn thing's almost shut down.
Here's a prediction. I'll go.
Big Shore is actually on that.
Of what Steph said. So this is a downer. I hate to end with a downer prediction, but with the marijuana thing, what's going to happen is the Post Disgrace had a story that was actually pretty solid about how in House Springs you can go to a Knights of Columbus and buy as much weed as you want, and it's not regulated and nobody tests it. Somebody's going to go to these unlicensed marijuana shops and they're going to get some weed and it's going to have fentanyl in it. And there's going to be a death, and somebody's going to say, why are you Missouri leaders not fixing this issue? Why are you allowing marijuana to be sold without being tested? If I'm Cardetti and company, I'm going to the state and I'm saying, why are you allowing these folks to operate? There will be a death based on illegal marijuana sales, and it's going to be all we hear about in 2024.
Reefer madness, huh?
Reefer madness. And other than that, my other prediction is Crystal Quaid will run the most successful state Senate candidate or most successful state Senate campaign that will last 2 years. And the governor's race will be a loss leader for her. And she will introduce herself to Missouri. She'll raise a lot of money. She'll put forth a good effort and say all the right things. And it'll be expensive, but she'll end up having a bright future.
I agree with you, except for I wonder, will this party allow her to make sense? Will this party allow her? Jay Nixon had a statewide race he used to introduce himself that everybody knew he'd lose, but he ran well. Will this party not make her say really dumb things that handicap her?
And be really shrill. And you and I are on the same page. When she came out and some of the stuff she said about the Dean Plocker situation, you could tell that wasn't the same Crystal Quaid that we had heard for weeks and months.
When you're around that woke stuff all the time, just goofy nonsense, it wears on your head. It's like when you're around the Republican angry. I see some of these folks that come in from a weekend of Lincoln days, and they're just like, their eyes are crossed. They're just ready to spit blood. When you're around like that over ridiculous, extremism all the time, it wears on you. Like Kelton's had to deal with. All right, last thing, Kelton, we got Mizzou. I'm going to move the line up. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to move the line at 2.5. I don't buy that. Mizzou.
They changed the line. They changed it. It's negative 3.5 for OSU now.
Oh, for OSU. Who are you taking?
Mizzou.
What if I told you Mizzou giving 20 points?
I'd have to go Mizzou.
What if I told you Mizzou giving 100 points? You never get that.
He's an eternal baby face, Scott. You'll never.
He is.
Never get him. He has to be the baby face. I know it's disgusting. He's the Ricky Steamboat to our Ric Flair. He just can't be a bad guy.
He really is. He's getting facial expression. All right, let's say I'm going to take Mizzou -7. Who are you taking?
Well, I have ethical obligations, and so I don't participate in illegal sports betting.
Oh, here we go. Goody
That's
two-shoes.
right.
But
That's
of
right.
course, I'm cheering for Mizzou. I have no idea about sports, so I'm not going to.
Miss Elizabeth over here.
Hey,
John,
I got to be consistent. I can't take Mizzou. I'm taking
What?
Ohio State in the points.
you saw his mug. He's from WashU. They hate Mizzou.
That's why I mean we're a Division III school at WashU. We don't even know what football is. I will take OSU in the points, and I'll gladly be the heel. And Kelton, you're the good guy in this, and I'm telling you, OSU is going to win. And I will tweet. Last time I picked Arkansas, and I was way wrong.
Yeah,
boom. And I tweeted it.
Click. But all right, I'm going to take it. So the line's really 3.5 for OSU.
Yeah, 3.5.
I'm
That's the
going to take
last
Mizzou
night.
on that. I think I'm going to take Mizzou to win, but I wouldn't say by a lot. I just think to Ohio State, I just think when they go to sleep at night, they see Harbaugh in their head. I think they're not even. They could care less about this game. This is not the game they wanted to be in. They're gonna. I guarantee you, if you could give Ohio State's coach the choice to win the Cotton Bowl or Michigan lose to Alabama, he would take Alabama beat Michigan and he would lose the Cotton Bowl and be happy.
They forgot where the Cotton Bowl was. Didn't they tweet out that they were going to the desert? And everyone's like, "What are you talking about?"
I think they got a wrong tweet. Yeah.
That's so funny.
They need a social media manager that's more like Stephanie Bell and Mike Kehoe. That's what they need. And they need to take a few selfies, and they need to post it for all to see. Hey, at the end of the year, Scott, on behalf of a lot of people, thank you for what you do. You provide a forum like this year from the beginning of the year to this appearance. You provided me a platform to talk about stuff. Always appreciate it. You give a voice to a lot of people that otherwise don't get a chance to tell their story.
And if folks are listening, we're going to hear your radio show because that's good stuff.
Thank you. You can first of all, you can find links usually most days on my website at johncombest.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I usually link to it. And we have a brand new YouTube page that I will put up on the website tomorrow. If you're in Warren County, Franklin County, St. Charles County, go to 104.5 FM.
I view his appearance on this show as the thing that's boosted the technology of his radio show along. It's moved the calendar up of his radio.
And after we weren't going to announce it until we were on the midweek update 5 weeks ago. And
well,
so
and someone who's been on YouTube for a while, Scott will be on our show tomorrow morning on Wake Up Missouri. So
she'll be doing her makeup while I'm on. So don't
absolutely, it's that's why people tune in.
But we really do appreciate it. I mean, it's hard for folks to keep. I mean, we talk about, following along in the legislature, and it is sometimes stuff moves at such a speed of light. It's hard to follow along, but I know I can always count on your shows on keeping me on the latest.
Well, I actually am going to give her the frying pan. I wasn't going to mail this before, but I am now. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you making the time. Love JohnCombest.com, Stephanie Bell, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Ellinger Bell. Supreme Court, World Traveler, Jennifer, but you're always telling them what they should rule on. Zell Fisher's unofficial clerk. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you guys. No show this week. We'll be partying, but we'll be back next week. We're going to try to do our full 4 House leaders and Senate leaders on. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you a week from Sunday.